I've just had an apostrophe.
I think you mean an epiphany.
Lightning has just struck my brain.
Well, that must hurt.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. And in this video, I got 3 comic book unboxings to do with you guys here today. And the theme for this video is really this idea of sleeping, because I kind of feel like with these 3 books, I have one book here that, I personally was sleeping on. I got another book that I personally think the market is sleeping on. And then the third book I have is a book that I think both myself and the market has been sleeping on. But before I get into the video, if you guys could drop me a like or a comment or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, help support the channel, do one of those things, I would appreciate it. But let us get into the video here today. And I mentioned that I have 3 unboxings here, but one of the books I actually have is not an unboxing because I actually bought this in my LCS the other day, so we can kind of have, the ceremony of unboxing by me flipping around and showing you guys. But this book, let me start with this one because this is a book that I personally feel like I was sleeping on. I think that the market kind of knew about this one, but for whatever reason, this has not really been a character that I've personally always gravitated to. But, the more and more I started thinking about them, the more and more I was like, I probably should get that book. And sure enough, I was out browsing, the LCSs this past weekend, and I came across this book being priced at a very competitive price. And I decided that I would pull the trigger. And the first book that, in my instance, I felt like I was sleeping on was this Daredevil number 168. First appearance of Elecktra. Of course, this is the classic book from 1980 written by Frank Miller that would feature, Daredevil's love interest. And with everything going on with the MCU, where it's looking like, the Charlie Cox Daredevil is going to play a major role in, the MCU going forward, to me, it feels very obvious that they're going to start to build out that Daredevil universe, characters like Bullseye, characters like Elecktra. And while I did pick up the Bullseye book, the Elecktra one was just like, I just have a bias against it. When I think about Elecktra, I think about that Jennifer Garner movie and how much I did not like it. But I really started to think, based on like the level and tier of character she actually is one of those characters that I feel like kind of transcends to that sort of next level. I actually do think a lot of, normies or people who do not collect comic books actually know who Elecktra is. And that sort of got me thinking like, maybe this is going to be a huge book at some point in the future. This one right here probably grades out to be like a VF copy. There is a little bit of a spine or a color break right here, so that definitely takes it down. But for me, it was being priced at $140. I felt like, hey, based on where this book is, right now in the market, it's really shot up. I figured, why not pick it up for myself? A character that I personally have been sleeping on for quite some time. All right, let's get into this next book here. And this book is one that I feel like is a book that the market continues to sleep on, because when I look at some of the graded prices, granted, the raw prices are still pretty pricey, and depending on your budget, this can be a pretty pricey book overall. But I still feel like this character is gonna be huge. And even though we haven't gotten any images of them yet, and we haven't, necessarily gotten an official announcement about him, all of the rumors, all of the leaks are pointing to this character showing up in the next Guardians of the Galaxy 3 movie. And I just, I think that this character has a lot of potential to not only just be, the villain of that film, but actually maybe be, a villain kind of like a Loki that has a major storyline in many films later on down the line. Like, I actually do think, based on all the touch points that this character can have with other characters in the universe, it won't just be the one-off movie for them. I think that there's a long road ahead of them. And so this is a book that I continue to pick up again and again and again every time I see it being sold at a good price. And the book, of course, I am talking about is Thor number 134, first appearance of the High Evolutionary. And this is just a villain I really do believe has a bright future ahead of them. I really do think, this is going to be the villain that we see in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. A lot of the rumors right now are that, Adam Warlock is going to be showing up in that film. And if you guys know the story from Marvel Premiere 1, which features, when Adam Warlock or the character him becomes the Adam Warlock version, it is the High Evolutionary that, gives him that name, that turns him into that version of the character. And this is where the High Evolutionary makes his first appearance. Now, this copy I happened to find on a Facebook group being sold at $200. It probably would grade out to be around a 7 to a 7.5. So I'm pretty excited about that because I actually have many, many copies of this book, 4 actually. And, all of them are in the kind of 4 to 5.5 range. So I'm really happy to have a raw grade that I get to keep for myself because this is probably going to be the one that stays in the PC. When we start to get those Guardians of the Galaxy 3 images, I probably will move on with this, with my graded copies and keep this one right here because I really do think that those graded copies, once we get those images, they're really going to go through the roof. And I think about, High Evolutionary when I do comparables to other books and think about, potential values. I really do think that the High Evolutionary, the book value, even right now when it's expensive, is undervalued when you compare it to other characters. All right, and the last book here, in the spirit of sleeping on stuff, this one is a book that I think both myself and the market has been sleeping on. And this is one that I actually picked up from Loco Comics. Shout out to Danny right there. Loco is a great seller, and he gave me a really good deal on this one. I was really excited to have it because I didn't have this book in my collection. And speaking of characters with huge, massive potential, I'm starting to think that this character is one that, I don't understand why the book isn't more expensive than it is. I mean, it's not to say that it's, a cheap book, but this is one that I feel like not only do we know that they're coming into the Spider-Verse as soon as this year, we also can assume that they're going to be coming in some kind of way in the Sonyverse with an Olivia Wilde film. And additionally, Marvel, the MCU, also has the rights to this character in some way, shape, or form. And with everything going on with Secret Invasion, and if they do the High Evolutionary, there are so many touch points to this character as well. And the character, of course, I am talking about is Marvel Spotlight number 32, first appearance of Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman. And when I think about this book, and like I just mentioned, all the various touch points that can lead to this character, not only in the MCU, but also in the animated Sony universe and also in the Sony verse or whatever you want to call it now, it just feels like this character is inevitable to make their way into pop culture. And when you think about Spider-Woman in general, think of how many comic series she has. I really do view her as one of the biggest female Marvel superheroes there is. And when we think about the Spider characters and their potential, I really think that this character is just one, successful pop culture property away from being skyrocketed into, an A-tier level. So I felt like, for me, lightning had just come down and struck my brain, and I really decided that hey, I probably should get a copy. So Danny at Local Comics was having his claim sale. He had this one up here. He had graded this one out to be a mid-grade level, but I think he's being pretty conservative. I mean, well, I'd have to take a look at it, but for me, it's for the PC. He was able to give me a good deal. Got this one for $130, so not a bad price overall, or $135 or whatever the case actually was. So super happy to add this one to my collection. And these 3 books overall, recent additions to the Swaggle home. I think that these are all characters that have huge potential in the future. Characters that I've been sleeping on some of them. I think the market is sleeping on some of them. I think myself and the market has been sleeping on one of them. And I really do think that all of these books will definitely be going up in the near future. But before I wrap this up here, just to nail the point home with Jessica Drew Spider-Woman, I did want to talk about, a video that I had made some months ago where I talked about is now the time to buy She-Hulk number 1 here. And, funny enough, I happened to talk about both the Elecktra book and the Spider-Man book because I felt like these were good comparable characters. And one of the things I like so much about the Spider-Woman book is that, when I look at the characters that are on the slide in front of you, I really do think that there's a strong possibility that any of these characters can be elevated into sort of an A or S tier status. But specifically, when I look at that Daredevil 168 and that Marvel Spotlight 32, you can see the census numbers for those ones at the 9.8 grade are 207 and 210. That's not to say that there's not books out there that can't be graded, but when we think about the census numbers and specifically the Spider-Woman book, I think that there's a lot lot of a ceiling that book can reach, because, you know, the fair market value is 3,300. When we compare it to Black Cat, you know, that book sits around the 5K level. So I think that there's still a lot of room to grow on that book. And then one of the other things I did in this particular video is I normalized the census, and we don't need to really get too much into the weeds, but just looking at some of these numbers here, if you just focus on the bottom side of it, those are basically characters by normalizing the census I'm suggesting are characters that I think are undervalued, or people are not spending the same amount of dollar value that they are on some of the other characters like She-Hulk and Black Cat. And when I look at characters like Spider-Woman and Elecktra, I feel like that's a great metric to really determine that these books are undervalued, because when I think about those characters in general, knowing that they're going to be showing up soon gives me a lot of hope that those books can really blow up. Anyways, that's all for this video. That was me just sort of doing, you know, a triple unboxing right there. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys have any of these books? What do you guys think about those characters? Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I will see you in the next video.